Professor Stulberg, when we talked to you a year ago, one of the things you said that was most striking was that ultimately the end game is going to be a question of how much. How much will Russia be able to accept? How much will the Ukrainians be able to accept? The Europeans, the Americans, and answers to those questions will give you the answer to what this looks like when the shooting stops. So I wonder if you can answer some of those questions yourself, in the sense that, because there have been surprises, it seems to be that the goalposts have changed a little bit. Like, what we were thinking would have been how much or how much is acceptable a year ago, that's changed a little bit, wouldn't you say?
Sure. I mean, like we were just talking about all these surprises, and I think we've had recalibration on all parts. But, when we talked a year ago, I would have suggested, and I did suggest that it was, what is there to gain, right? And we'd have to go around the table and look at that and, sort of do a cost benefit analysis. I think a year in, we're getting close to, I would argue, for Russia, and this is where I would argue is a danger point for us, is when the question becomes, how much are they willing to lose? And that's where I think a lot of trepidation is coming from. For example, if Putin has been really more opportunistic, he saw Ukraine weak, he saw this as an asymmetry of interest, he didn't think Europe and US would stand firm in providing the supplies that were needed, et cetera, that this would be kind of a walk in the Ukrainian park, if you will. And of course, so he wasn't really willing to pay huge costs because he didn't think he'd have to. But then, of course, he gets stung. They're not prepared. We're now in sort of a war of attrition. We're in a very different conflict now. So if you think that he can't just cut and run, but now the question is, how much is he willing to lose? And that's where, if it's a little bit, okay, but this is where his calculation interacts with Ukrainian calculation and our calculation, which our calculation may be different. And I think you're hearing this from Blinken and from others about, what do we want in this? How do we see the end game? Well, yes, I think the appetites for Ukrainians, for the West in general, have gotten bigger than at the beginning of the conflict because of Russia's performance. But, if Ukraine is committed and dead set to, evicting Russia from all of their territory, including those that Russia had influence or if not control over prior to 2022, well, that may be where Putin's loss and Ukraine's gain may come into direct conflict with each other. And then the question is, where are we going to be on that calculus? So I think that before, this was really a target of opportunity, and we were really, I can't prove this, but I got the sense that we were willing to write it off to some extent in the beginning. And Ukrainians obviously were fighting for their nationhood. A year in, the question is, how much is Putin willing to sacrifice as a loss? How much are we going to temper the appetite for victory on the part of Ukrainians if there's a movement away from this, attrition situation that we're in, and that a lot of people are expecting in the next few weeks or months, we may see another offensive that will try to move those things. And those are the questions I would say that are going to be front and center with us, rather than the calculations that were there a year ago.